I'm 61 years old now, and for most of my life, I've carried myself with a kind of composed grace, quiet, polite, never one to stir the waters. Love, at least the kind that stirs your soul, had long ago become a distant notion for me, like a book you once read but can't quite remember how it ended. It had been 5 years since my husband passed away, and in those years I had fallen into a comforting rhythm. My work, my garden, my quiet evenings spent curled up with a cup of tea and old black and white films. I truly believed my days of being truly seen were behind me. But not long ago, something occurred, something that still causes a tremble in my chest every time I revisit it. I never imagined such a moment could unfold for someone like me. Please, if you hear anything in my words, let it be this. Don't dismiss the moments that seem unlikely. I did, and it left me breathless. It was a rainy evening. Not the kind that lashes out angrily, but a steady, whispering drizzle that seems to draw the whole world inward. I had stayed back late at the office, buried in reports that needed correcting after a mistake from my team. My boss, Greg Bennett, had left earlier for a dinner appointment, but had called ahead to let me know his son would be stopping by to give me a ride home. I nearly refused. The last thing I wanted was to inconvenience anyone, least of all Jason, Greg's son, whom I'd only met briefly at a few holiday events and summer picnics. He was in his 20s, energetic, polite, but I hardly knew him beyond a handshake and a hello. As I stepped out of the office, the wind turned my umbrella into a makeshift sail, tugging me toward the curb. And there he was, Jason, his black SUV idling at the curb, its headlights cutting through the rain. He jumped out with an energy that only youth can wear so casually, hoodie damp from the rain. "Hey, Miss Collier," he greeted me with a warm smile. "Need a lift?" Got the heat blasting. "Just call me Diane," I replied, returning his smile as I slipped into the warmth of his vehicle. The interior smelled faintly of leather and something citrusy, maybe cologne, maybe gum. He settled behind the wheel with a quiet ease, adjusting the mirrors and pulling away smoothly. "I hope I'm not putting you out," I said, folding my hands primly in my lap. Jason glanced at me, his expression unreadable but kind. "Not at all. Honestly, I could use the drive." We drove in silence for a stretch, the sound of the wipers slicing gently across the windshield. Streetlights shimmered in the rain-drenched asphalt. The city outside felt slowed, hushed. I found myself glancing at him now and then, the way his jaw clenched in focus, the small dimple that appeared when something on the radio amused him. "You've been with my dad's company a long time, haven't you?" he asked suddenly. "Almost 20 years, I replied. He nodded. "He always talks about you, says you're the glue that keeps the place from falling apart." I laughed softly. Someone has to hold things together. His smile faltered, not quite reaching his eyes. A silence fell again, heavier this time. Then, with a suddenness that felt both hesitant and urgent, he pulled the SUV into a quiet parking lot near a city park. The rain had lessened to a misty drizzle. The soft blue light of the dashboard played shadows across his features. "I know this is a little odd," he said after a long pause, "but there's something I've been carrying around for a while, and I didn't think I'd say it tonight, but here we are." My breath caught. I braced myself for a confession, maybe a falling out with his father, or some personal heartbreak. "I've thought about you a lot," he said, voice steady but low. "I know that might sound strange. You're older, you work with my dad. I get it. But I've watched you over the years, at those events, the way you carry yourself. There's a strength in you, something calm and grounding. I needed you to know." I couldn't speak. I didn't know what to say. The rain had faded, leaving a cocoon of silence around us, interrupted only by the soft hum of the heater and the rush of blood in my ears. Jason didn't move closer. He didn't push or plead. His voice stayed level, respectful. "I don't expect anything. I just wanted to say it." Because you deserve to hear it. You deserve to be seen. Something twisted deep in my chest. A pain I hadn't noticed was there, not just from his words, but from what they awoke in me. A longing I had buried so deeply beneath politeness and practicality that I'd forgotten it existed. When he dropped me off at my house, he did so without ceremony or expectation. I stood in my front hall long after he'd left, my coat still clutched in my hands, staring at the door. Everything in the house looked the same, old walls, familiar furniture, but something inside me had shifted. That night, I didn't sleep. His words echoed like a melody I hadn't heard in years. I've thought about you for a long time. You deserve to hear that from someone who sees it. No one had looked at me that way in decades, maybe ever, and certainly not someone like him. The next morning I went through my routine like a woman underwater, poured coffee, fed Maple, my aging tabby, pulled back the curtains and watched the pale winter sunlight creep across the floor. But my mind wouldn't let go of his words or the look in his eyes. At work, I avoided Greg. I felt too exposed, like my skin had gone transparent. My clothing hadn't changed, soft cardigan, neatly pressed blouse, but something inside me had. I had. Midweek, Jason texted. Hope I didn't cross a line. I'm sorry if it was weird. I stared at the message, heart fluttering. After a few minutes, I typed, You didn't. Thank you for trusting me with that. I'm still thinking. He responded quickly. Take your time. Just wanted you to know. That night I sat on my porch beneath a worn blanket, listening to the trees creak gently in the wind. I thought about how I used to believe love faded with age, like a sunset giving way to night. I thought I had passed the threshold into invisibility, but Jason had looked at me and seen me. A few days later, Greg's assistant called out sick before a big meeting across town. Greg was tied up in meetings, so I offered to drop off the documents. And there he was again. Jason stood beside his SUV, hands in his coat pockets. He gave me a quiet smile. Hey, Diane, Dad said you might need a ride. I hesitated, heart racing, but nodded. The drive this time felt different, quieter, more charged. No radio, just the sound of tires on damp pavement and the occasional sigh of wind. As we neared the office, I turned to him. You meant it, didn't you? What you said that night. His eyes didn't waver. Every word. I looked down at my hands. That's a lot for me to process. You're young and I'm... Don't, he cut in gently. Don't reduce yourself to a number. You're Diane. You're kind, intelligent. You have a laugh that softens rooms. That's what I see. His words slipped through the careful barriers I had spent years constructing. When I handed him the file to deliver, our fingers brushed, just lightly. But the contact was enough to ignite something that had been dormant for far too long. On the drive back he said nothing more, but before I stepped out, he looked at me again. I'm not here to confuse you. I just want to be someone who reminded you that you're worthy. I swallowed hard. You did, and I didn't realize how much I needed that. Over the weekend, I busied myself with chores, most of them unnecessary, folding laundry that was already folded, reorganizing cabinets, trimming rose bushes even though winter was close. But Jason's words clung to me. When my phone buzzed that evening, it was him. Are you calm? Would it be okay if I stopped by for a bit? My heart raced. I could have said no. Should have, maybe. But instead, I typed yes, just for a little while. He arrived 20 minutes later, mist in his hair and that familiar, careful smile on his lips. We sat in the living room, the fire burning low. He didn't rush. He didn't even reach for me. He simply was there. We talked about life, about love, about loneliness. You shine, Diane, he said quietly. You carry something rare. And maybe you've never heard that before, but it doesn't make it any less true. And in that moment, something inside me broke open. We didn't touch. Not yet. But our nearness was enough. The next few days passed slowly, but with a strange kind of brightness. He texted occasionally, simple things, a book recommendation, a photo of the sky, and it was enough. One evening after work, he was there again, waiting. "What are you most afraid of?" he asked when we sat in the car. "That I'll lose myself," I whispered. "That I'll start to want something I don't deserve." He took my hand then, warm, steady. "You deserve everything, and I'm not here to take anything from you. I'm here to give, if you'll let me." And for the first time in a very long time, I believed someone. That night, we sat in my kitchen until long after the tea had gone cold, just talking, just being, and for the first time, I didn't feel alone in the world. I felt seen, and maybe that was the beginning of something real, something that mattered, something that, in my quiet, graceful 61 years, I had never dared to hope for, until now.